Eddie, we've seen the news regarding Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury break in the last 24 hours. How exciting is it that Anthony Joshua could potentially become undisputed heavyweight champion of the world?
Very exciting. I mean, there's still work to do, and I did make that clear in the initial interview. But the good news is that we have a deal in place in principle in terms of the financial element of the deal. Mostly, in all these major fights, that is the principal problem in getting a deal over the line. So that's been agreed. There are obstacles to overcome, some broadcast issues. Venue, of course, has to be decided as well. And the small matter of a couple of fights in between. And of course, Dillian White's mandatory as well, which we have to push forward with the WBC. So still a long way to go, but everyone confident that we're moving towards the biggest fight in boxing in 2021.
You mentioned there and yesterday financially. Is that kind of how far the discussions have gone? Is there anything further between fighters that...
There's been conversations, between myself and all of Team Fury for a few months now regarding this fight. This week, we both had an agreement where we would move forward with a financial agreement in terms of the split for the first fight and the second fight. And now we have to move forward on the remaining issues, particularly obviously where this fight's going to take place. A couple of interesting discussions about broadcasters and other obstacles to overcome. But both guys have got to focus on Kubrat Pulev for Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder or Dillian White, depending on what happens for Tyson Fury. So I think that right now it's to the fighters remain calm, focus on the job at hand and let the work take place behind the scenes to make sure now that we dot the I's and cross the T's to complete everything.
You mentioned there about venues. Could you shed any light on where's in contention?
I mean, everyone will talk about this fight taking place in the UK because it's between two Brits, and that's, in an ideal world, that's definitely something that we'd look at and we'd look favourably upon. I keep saying to people, I had a little, not an argument with Nicky Campbell this morning on the radio. He says, just do it in England, just do it in England. It doesn't work like that. We have to go back to report to these people's teams. We have to report the offers that are coming in. It's a fight between two guys. And as I said to Nicky Campbell, you can sit in the studio in your comfy chair. Just do it here. These guys are going in to have a fight in a 20 by 20 foot ring with 10-ounce gloves on. And it's a dangerous, dangerous sport. So let them make their money. And it's a 2-fight deal. So one will take place probably in alternative venues to the other fight. If we can do the fight in the UK, fantastic. We know that Saudi Arabia would love to have this fight, and we had a wonderful experience there last time with the Andy Ruiz fight. Tyson Fury's also performed there in the WWE. We've had offers from China, we've had offers from around the world. So this is the biggest fight in boxing. It doesn't get any bigger. So there's not going to be any country that stages major events that won't want this fight, and that's something to be dealt with over the next month or so.
Both fighters are tied to different broadcasters, different networks, a lot of people involved. We have seen networks work together in the past on huge fights. Is it likely that we'll see something like that again?
Yeah, again, that's all to be discussed. Some of these fighters have exclusive contracts with broadcasters. Some of them have matching rights and all kinds of other obstacles to overcome. When a fight is this big, as we saw with Mayweather against Pacquiao, you'd be surprised how many people can work together to try and get this over the line. We've got to keep focused on the fighters. They're the important ones here. We need to provide them with the opportunity of a lifetime to fight for the undisputed championship. So we can't be greedy, and broadcasters can't be greedy and get in the way. They've got to protect their contracts and their investments, and we've got to make sure that we're fair with our partners, and we will be. But I expect that to be overcome, not with ease, but to be overcome.
Is there any news on who we can expect to see as the A side on the poster?
That's a good point, and I guess that's something down the line there, when we talk about other obstacles to overcome. I don't think that, I don't know, would Fury mind about being the A-side? Would Josh mind about being the A-side? What do we do? Toss a coin? I don't know. Josh has got more belts, so we nick the A, I don't know. Fury, Joshua, Joshua, Fury, one each? I don't know. One's on the front of the poster, one ring walks first, one's got the home corner, one's got the better dressing room. These are all things to be decided. I don't think either guy, when it comes down to it, wants to disrupt a fight because of those reasons. But we'll see.
You mentioned his name at the start there. Where does Dillian White fall into all this?
Well, Dillian White's the mandatory for the WBC world title, and we've written to the WBC to confirm that this must happen before the end of February. So certainly if the Fury-Wilder fight didn't take place for any reason, we know Wilder had an operation, Dillian must take that fight. If they do fight in October, November, Dillian is due to fight before the end of February for that title. So, we know we get a lot of heat from Dillian. He texted me last night, and we'll be pushing that mandatory. We know that the biggest fight in boxing is the undisputed heavyweight world championship. And of course, people want to see that fight. But this isn't a case of just saying to Dillian, sorry, mate, you've got to wait a little bit longer. We've written to the WBC, so have Dillian's lawyers, and the ruling is that fight must take place before the end of February.
You mentioned two other names, Kubrat Pulev and Deontay Wilder, two people who will look to put a spanner in the works. How dangerous are they to potentially scupper the potential AJ?
Well, it's heavyweight boxing. It's always dangerous. You'd have to say that Joshua was a bigger favourite to beat Pulev than Fury is to beat Wilder again, but they're both expected to win. Our focus right now is on Kubrat Pulev and also looking at where that fight's going to take place. We'd love that fight to take place in the UK, October, November time, hopefully when crowds are back in as well. And Tyson Fury's got a tough job against Deontay Wilder. I will say, this isn't about Tyson Fury. This is about the undisputed championship. If Deontay Wilder beats Tyson Fury, we're going straight for Deontay Wilder, because for years and years, Joshua wanted to fight Wilder because he had the belt. Now he doesn't have it anymore. So all of our attention is to Tyson Fury. So a lot of people said, if Fury loses, it won't be as big a fight. It's not happening if Fury loses. And if Joshua loses, he'll probably rematch Kubrat Pulev. So the undisputed will be squashed if one of them loses. But they've both got to focus on winning. We've got to keep pushing Dillian Whyte for a shot at a world title as well. And ultimately, they mustn't look past those individual opponents. And it is dangerous to start announcing fights before another fight. Before the Andy Ruiz fight, all people were talking about was AJ against Wilder. Next thing, you lose. So AJ is focused on Kubrat Pulev, and I'm sure Tyson will be focused on Deontay Wilder.